Well, good morning. So we're on lesson 63 of the Workbook of A Course in Miracles. The light of the world brings peace to every mind through my forgiveness. There's an interesting part in the Course when Jesus begins to talk about how we actually learn and how this actually works. And one of the things he says is when we can envision this and the vision comes, the ability to see it and have the vision be the way we're seeing, to envision it and see things in that way, allows it to be made manifest, because what we envision will be made manifest indeed. When I read this lesson last night, before I went to sleep, I'm sort of in a backwards progression through the workbook based on my, based on being asked to do these videos. So I read the lesson that I'm going to do in the morning, the night before I go to sleep, and just do whatever I do with it or whatever it does to me, so that as Jesus says in the manual for teachers, while routines are dangerous in that they can become gods unto themselves, it is a great idea to both start the day and end the day by utilizing some of the ideas and the lessons that we are learning in order to give our minds over to the Holy Spirit and allow Him to order our thoughts and our life. He says in one spot, the way you awakened will be a clue to what you gave your mind over to before you went to sleep, which in a particular way is the entire Course in Miracles, because when you awaken to the memory of what you forgot when you went to sleep, but was previously your reality. So, in a particular way, in each and every one of his practices, there does lie the entirety of the lesson that we're being given and asked to learn for our salvation and the salvation of the world, and for the making manifest of the kingdom right where we find ourselves, so that heaven and earth no longer exist as separate states within our mind, because our whole mind has been given over to our single function and our single purpose, which is the one God has given us. In reality, it's creation, and here it's forgiveness unto the recognition of our true creative nature. So the light of the world brings peace to every mind through my forgiveness. So as I read the lesson last night, and for many of you who do have experiences of light, not as a concept, but as an actuality, to those of you who have successfully, and I applaud you if you have, to those of you who have successfully realized that our spiritual eye, not the eyes of the body, not the ego, not the eyes of the body, our spiritual eye, which Jesus' way of talking about the activity, our spiritual eye, as opposed to the eyes of the body. The eyes of the body was originally what Jesus used to speak of the ego to Helen, and the spiritual eye was what he originally used when he spoke of the Holy Spirit, before they changed those terms, before they condensed them into the reference we now use in the editions, in any edition of A Course in Miracles. So, as many of you, through your desire to know light as your reality, to know the light that is yourself as your reality, have been willing to recognize that it was an act of will that shut the spiritual eye to light, it is likewise an act of using that will to allow it to reopen by desiring it above all else, and recognizing that being the light of the world, it would be sure nice to know what that light actually is. And many of you are coming into the condition of recognition experientially of having that light being made available to you. When that light's available to you in these light episodes, in that sense, in these episodes of light that we are learning to integrate, so they're no longer the anomaly, but they're actually they're no longer an anomalous phenomena. They are constant recognition through our utilization indeed. So as we recognize these light moments, we see the totality of the breadth and the width of what this light is and what we are in that light. And in that light, there's no room for darkness. It's quite simple. Where is the darkness when the light has come? So within that light, wherein which there is no darkness, there is nothing which we've used to represent that darkness. There is no lack of peace. There is no lack of joy. There is no lack. There is lack of lack, as a matter of fact. So in those moments, when we do experience that light, that is an extension of the peace of God, this lesson comes to life immediately. And what I could see last night when I read the lesson, and the light comes on me or over me or encompasses me, and I encompass it, however you want to speak of it, because the speaking of it is not the action of it. As I have been attempting to teach people, teaching forgiveness is not what forgiveness is. Talking about what forgiveness is not what forgiveness is. Forgiveness is an action of mind wherein which the Holy Spirit enlightens our mind and show us how what we thought our brothers had done to us, we actually did to ourselves, and in reality it doesn't exist at all. So there's nothing at all to be guilty or fearful for or of. That's how forgiveness works. Now that may be a concept to many of you, and you can dispute it conceptually, but for those of you who are enjoying the gift that forgiveness brings as an action and activity of your mind, you know full well what it is I'm talking about. It's not mistakable when it happens, because it's the correction for the mistake. And there's a certain simplicity that comes with this. So when I was reading this lesson last night, it brought me back to the days when I first got A Course in Miracles, and it was very difficult for me to read much more than a line or two, or certainly a paragraph. I don't know if I ever got through a section, because it was so profound and so true based on my experience and realization of God, yet not integrated within me. And I required, as Helen did, which is the first part of A Course in Miracles, when you read, and it's going to be made available to you, I assure you, we're working on it right now. when you read Helen's notes, it wasn't that she was not hearing correctly and she was what must have been called the proverbial rusty pipe. It wasn't that at all. She was hearing perfectly well, yet everything she was hearing was challenging her human sensibilities, and Jesus, with the patience of the Christ that he is, not just the patience of a saint, Jesus, with the patience, the infinite patience of his one true reality, and yours and mine as well, would take the time out from giving her the generalized parts of the book in order to help her begin to correctly see what his meaning was, rather than the meaning that she was writing over his words. Now, to me, that was how I was taught to use the Course. That is the practice and purpose of A Course in Miracles. As Jesus told Helen, if you want to act like me, you have to use the same mind as I do. And if you use the same mind as I am, we share meaning. And when we share meaning, we make the meaning from the Christ mind. We make it true, and we can make it manifest right here, right now. So last night when I picked up the lesson and I read the first paragraph, I had to put it down because the light that I recognized shining in me, I could see how easily it would bring peace to every mind, because we are all joined in one mind, and the peace of God is all we can actually share. We can't share separation. We could agree to be separate, which is how the initial tiny mad idea was allowed to be given effects, but we cannot share separation. We can only share that which God is and creates as us, because it was given to one and to all in equal whole parts, wherein which none of it is lacking and none could ever be lacking. And the more we utilize it and the more we give of it, the greater the supply and the abundance grows, both for ourselves and our brother, and within the totality of the kingdom as well. That's how we create, why we create, and what we're designed to do. So when I read, how holy are you who have the power to bring peace to every mind, how blessed are you who can learn to recognize the means for letting this be done through you. What purpose could you have that would bring you greater happiness? Perhaps you're seeing in my laughter the greatness of the happiness and joy in the recognition that if I can envision this in any given moment, it must be possible, and it will be made manifest to one and to all. Now, I'm not special in any regard, believe me. If you looked into my past, it would be at least as sordid as any of your past, and perhaps more. I just may have been unwilling to suffer any more sickness, pain, suffering, and death when offered the opportunity by the voice of God to say yes to saving the world, because saving the world was saving my own ass from the world. And then it was dawned on me, it was the recognition that there was nobody punishing me but myself. God certainly wasn't judging me, so he wasn't meting out punishment. Jesus certainly could not be punishing me, nor was he looking at my own theory of worthlessness and shame, because he was the one who made the offer. And I assure you, he knows you better than you know yourself here in space and time, because being in space and time is the condition of not knowing yourself, until finally you can align and converge with the mind of Christ through Jesus as our intercessor and intermediary, and become the Christ yourself. Now, that's what it means to get beyond the Course in Miracles. To get beyond the Course in Miracles doesn't mean it was time for you to put it down because you went on to another book. Getting beyond the Course in Miracles means your mind is so healed as to no longer hold illusions about yourself or your brother. So heaven and earth exist not as separate states, and the kingdom is being made manifest through you, just as this lesson talks about how blessed are you who can learn to recognize the means for letting this be done through you. Because if you can recognize, re-know the means for letting this be done through you, then it can be done through you indeed. And it will, and it is. Time is a sleight of hand. There's no such thing as a past except in the memory that we utilize to maintain space and time as the consciousness domain of the ego. And when we reverse our thinking about what we are when we are upset and righted, and our memory of who we are is replaced by the remembrance of who we are in the kingdom here and now, then you cannot not begin to make manifest the kingdom, because it will be done through you, just as this is saying, the peace of God will be brought to you and all the world through your forgiveness of yourself for being what you are not in its entirety. You will no longer be an illusion unto yourself. And don't be confused by the continuing symptoms of being able to utilize a body in space and time, because as we utilize, we have to learn that it was never the body that kept us from the kingdom. It was our thoughts about the body and the world. So everything that we previously used to hurt ourselves with must be given back to us, free from the meaning that we utilized before in order to hurt ourselves, so as to show us we are trustworthy, we are members of the kingdom, we are the kingdom, and there is nothing in the world that can hurt you or disturb your peace. Many of you begin to recognize that. It's a surprise. You are indeed the light of the world with such a function. The Son of God looks to you for his redemption. It is yours to give him, for it belongs to you. Accept no trivial purpose or meaningless desire in its place, or you will forget your function and leave the Son of God in hell. And who, O brother of mine, is the Son of God in hell but you, when you have forgotten your function? The joy that many of you are experiencing now is the willingness to allow your function to one of be remembering along with your brother, join with your brother in celebrating and welcoming the kingdom of heaven within your own heart and mind. And when we join in the system of triangulation with that is which beyond space and time, while we're still in space and time, we cannot not begin to make manifest the kingdom. You will enjoy give up the world. You will enjoy giving to all in order to have all. You won't reduce St. Francis into stripping off his clothes and running naked through the streets because he found something. You'll recognize in his action his desire to share everything with everyone. So the light of the world brings peace to every mind through my forgiveness. And how blessed are you who can recognize the means for letting this be done through you. And believe me, even if you have not recognized the means that can be for letting this be done through you, you're still blessed. You're just hiding your light under a bushel basket and suffering from the extinguishment of the flame that you are. But your flame is eternal. You cannot die, you cannot kill yourself, you only just continue to recycle in these meaningless cycles of death to birth and on to what we think is life again, until you finally give up the world, forget that it is your reality, and use the forgetting to remember the truth of who you are as being the kingdom. So the light of the world brings peace to every mind through my forgiveness and your forgiveness. And when your forgiveness and my forgiveness are completed and we join as one, the kingdom will be made manifest, and you will see it where you previously saw it not. And you will rejoice. And you will be glad. And since that is an ultimate happening, and space and time don't exist, it's something that's happening to each and every one of you right now, whether you know it or not. It's just much more fun and enjoyable when you come to know it as the truth rather than an intellectual adjudication or exercise, because the rest of your life is boring and meaningless and there's nothing really for you to do here any longer. Give up the world. It holds nothing that you want. and accept the kingdom of heaven as what you are in your reality, and you will see it made manifest right here, right now.